Episode 59 of Minor Disturbance Radio. Of course, I'm Brian Minor. Travis is here, but I can't show him to you yet because we have a mysterious special guest in the studio with us right now.
So scary.
And I got to be honest, I've been nervous ever since I knew that he was going to be on the show because we have a lot of history together. I'm getting chills right now just thinking about how special this is right now to have him here with me. Mr. Tony Higbee is here. He was actually one of the founding members of one of my most important bands, which was Drophammer. We put it together from scratch way back in 96 or something like that.
Yeah, I don't even know. Sometimes it's a blur.
Yeah.
But I was trying to tell my wife the other night. It's like, yeah, we were in a band together like 20 years ago. It's been that long.
I did the math last night when I was sitting out in the garage, and I went, it's been 20 years.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy.
So was it both of your first, like, real original band? Like, really, we're pouring it in and doing it? We were in a band. We were in a couple bands before that, but they were primarily covers with maybe an original sprinkled in here and there. Yeah.
But there wasn't anybody around here just doing original bands. I remember I was playing in Split Personality with Ted from Hong Kong, Sleepover. And then I don't even remember what brought me to Davenport. I'm 99% sure it was Jerry Freese, and I don't remember what the encounter was or why. But that's when you and I met because it was you and me and Jerry Freese. And was the drummer's name Chad?
Yeah, I think we did have one at the time named Chad.
Yeah, he was like total pretty boy, and we used to joke, and he was a killer drummer, but we used to joke about we were going to call the band Chad's Ass, and we were just going to put him in the front center of the stage and turn his kit backwards so everybody could just stare at his butt.
Yeah. He was like the best looking guy in the world.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Women loved him. He was like if Mike Tramp was a drummer. He was
absolutely.
It's kind of right.
I remember Tony and I talking. We were like, "Well, there's no chance of us ever getting any groupies
we will never get laid."
But we still love the music, right?
Because this is a beautiful man, and clearly he has physical stamina.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then I remember that whole thing kind of dissolved, and then Split had talked about getting back together, and then you came and played with Split.
Well, you brought me in.
Yeah.
From what I remember, and I know this is boring people that are here to probably hear from.
This is fascinating.
The star
to
guitar
us.
player
We wanna know.
in the Tom Keifer
Outside
band.
looking in.
You know, Tony's career.
It's good coffee.
Begins. It begins.
It's good coffee. All right.
Now, in Japan, that's a compliment. However, in America, that means you're a filthy pig.
And by the way, when Tony got here, there was a quick hug and then immediate talk about coffee and how to make it and the best ways.
We were ready to go down.
But we won't go there right now.
That's another podcast.
Yeah, right.
But I guess what I remember is I met you through Jerry. He's like, I got this bass player because you were playing bass at the time.
Yep.
And he was interested in putting a band together, and then he had me. He found this hot shot guitar player at the time, and I thought we were gonna be like Dokken.
Yeah.
I was gonna be like George Lynch, and then you'd be like Pilsen, and we needed a drummer. We had it going. I think we did like 2 rehearsals, and Tony was like, "Nope, I'm done with this." You know what I mean? I
remember we jammed a couple times, and you and I got on really well, and then Chad, I thought, bailed. If I remember right, the drummer, and then we couldn't really find another drummer. You know what? We're forgetting about the in-between band. We're forgetting about the band with Corey, where we were driving like 6 hours.
Dead giveaway. Yeah, dude, I moved all the way to Missouri and lived in a farmhouse with no air conditioning with the drummer. So that I could be in this band. You kind of brought me into the Split fold. I came down and saw you and Macomb play when you guys first did a reunion. I think is what it was. You did a reunion. I came down and I was like, holy shit. I mean, it was packed. And I was thinking, oh man, that's happening. This is the band I want to be in, because it's hard to get anybody to come out in the cities and see a band. So
now, who was playing guitar for the band when you saw him that time?
Chad Dennis.
That was Chad Dennis, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he also was one of them kids that looked like Mike Tramp.
So, but what's the deal with dudes named Chad?
Yeah.
Chad, good-looking guy also.
Yeah,
I remember he played without a shirt on, and I was like, damn it, because I had a bird chest and I hadn't done a push-up yet, like that. So
you'd eaten some push-ups.
Yeah, well, since then I have.
Yeah, right.
Well, yeah. There was all kinds of crazy stuff because I remember somebody broke into the bus and stole all your shit.
Oh my God!
What?
Yeah, I showed up to a gig in Macomb and I got my guitars in my hand. Like,
all right,
4 cases, Hartfields, all of them Hartfields. Showing up to the gig, and I believe you or Ted came up to me and said, "Tell us you took your rig home the last time we played," because they had a bus and it was in the bus. Listen, it was in the through the back door of the bus, like a school bus type bus.
Yeah.
There was the PA and the lights and all that stuff, and then halfway you go over the top of that, which is packed to the top of the bus. There was a set of lockers, and that's where my rack was. My rack was in one of the lockers,
right,
locked.
Yeah. Somebody literally crawled through the bus around the PA system. Like right past all of Jim's cymbals. There's a bag.
Really,
thousands of bucks.
They just want a guitar.
They just took his rig.
Yeah,
weird.
My rack, everything in it. I had just bought that entire rig. I was starting to cry. I was tearing up, and I was like, "Don't be a pussy, Brian."
Yeah, right.
And you're like, and here's what was great back then. I was so hardcore about playing. I was like, "How am I going to get through this gig?"
Yeah, right.
Most people like, "We're done.
We're done.
Right? Yeah. It's not happening tonight."
Right. No,
I'm like, how am I going to get through this gig?
So you started canvassing.
So somebody let me borrow a PV something head, and I made it through the night, and I knew not to buy that head.
Yeah, VTM 120.
It was something horrible.
120.
It was something horrible. And I went home, and I told my mom what happened, and she went, and she came, she went in the other room. She came out, and she handed me a Visa or a MasterCard and said, "Go get a new one."
So what was in that rack?
You were the only guy I ever met who made rack mount PV stuff sound good.
Thank you.
It sounded great.
It did sound good. I remember it was fucking killer.
Like this stereo tube amp and then this pre.
It was a PV stereo 120, and then a PV Rockmaster. Tube and solid state pre.
Right.
And then I think some of that had to do with the compression. I had a compressor on there and a BBE as well, a sonic maximizer or something like that.
BBE.
Yeah, and of course, if you put it through 412 cabinets, it's going to sound good, even if it was a Gorilla. You know? So I think that had to do with it. It was pure just power. That's what it was.
See, the cool thing about Gorilla amps is those actually have a switch that says tube stack on them. You just flip the tube stack switch, and you're fucking
you've
there.
Got a tube stack.
You got tube stack, man.
And then we do that. We decide we're going to put together another band, and we go looking for a drummer. And did you and I go to a Kiss concert on the reunion tour?
Is that where we found Terry? That would make sense.
Yeah, because wasn't it at a pre-party?
Yeah, it was some party and we wound up jamming with him. But
yes, you were. It was me and you then.
Yep.
We went to Scott Goodyear. Had this party before Kiss. It was right there by the Mark and Kiss was playing at the Mark. We went to this pre-party that was all Kiss, and they had a band playing there. Sam Leon and Scott Goodyear and all of them were in a band. We're walking around. I'm thinking I'm hot shit because I always did back then. I had something to prove because I had whatever. We'll touch on that.
You don't still.
Anyway, so we hear about Terry from Ted.
Yeah,
I think you might have known who he was.
I knew about Terry because I knew that Terry had played with Ted before Split.
And I think the reputation was, I don't know, man. I heard that he overplays or something, and I was like, bingo, that's the guy I want
right there. Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of what I'm looking for.
Busy,
because I think we're all gonna overplay.
That's right. Yeah.
And I remember going to Terry's house and jamming with him, and literally feeling like he was auditioning us because we had found when we showed up, he was sitting there reading a Drummer magazine.
Yeah.
And he had ankle weights on, and he was just going on his kick drums, right?
No,
and back then, that was like, oh God, this is going to to be great.
Terry Hodges is still the fucking man, though.
He's
really
still
good. Really good, man.
He's really good.
I mean, he just did that. That all-star jamnasium for us, and man, he was good.
Yeah,
he's really
a good drummer.
Great drummer.
He's a good guy too.
Really exciting to watch. And
Terry's
super solid time. And
Terry's into it.
Yeah,
he is.
And that's awesome. That's what he should be.
And then we pulled some fuckery. We came up with a plan where we heard that there's this hotshot guitar player in Burlington. And they had a band, and they were looking for a bass player.
Oh, yeah. You and I went and...
No, not you and I. You went and auditioned for their band, and they were like, "You're in, dude. You're awesome." And you went, "Hey, Jeff, come here."
Yeah.
And you're like, "Hey, I got this other thing back in the cities. Would you be interested in doing that?"
Jeff, monster guitar player. And, I called Brian, like, I got this guy, and you should meet him, and I think you guys would both play great together. Right. I knew what was going to happen was either they were going to get along great and play awesome together, or they were going to be like...
Battle of egos,
Yeah, the whole time. Because, you get two guitar players like that in the same room, and they're both monster players. Sure. The funny thing was, Brian would be there. He'd go, all right, so I got this solo, and he'd be like, and Jeff would be like, cool, I'll do a harmony. It's gonna be like this.
Exactly. Verbatim.
Like that fast.
I mean, it was that quick. It was
That's
hilarious.
Incredible. That's incredible.
It was as obnoxious as watching the Yngwie Malmsteen instructional video.
Yeah.
What the fuck just happened?
And totally, I remember that video. Yeah.
Yeah, but you could kind of do that stuff on your bass too. I mean, you jump in and do some stupid thing with it.
Yeah.
We were all trying to show off.
Dude, I was so far into my Billy Sheehan phase. Just neck deep. Funny. I've actually I think back and was like, I know that there was a time in my life when I was playing bass with Split, and I probably tapped on a bass during an AC/DC song.
Yep.
And I just hang my head just like,
yeah.
So the sins of our forefathers. Thank God YouTube wasn't a thing back then.
Well, you were looking back. Just, come on now. You were serving the song.
I was serving anything but the song.
Yeah. I was really being entirely sarcastic.
In the interim, Tony and I had become really close friends.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we kind of both had the same vision of the outcome that we wanted, I think. And I looked forward to seeing you all the time. I mean, you were my partner in crime in a lot of ways. Because I really didn't have that much validation from too many people until I got around some guys that were like, we believe in what's going on here, and we believe in you as a guitar player.
But I was not able to put together any kind of an original band until I found at least one person that really I felt like was a supporter. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Somebody that could let me know that what it was that I was doing was worth something, and that it was going in a direction that made sense.
And in this whole area, and this whole I can't speak to it now because I haven't lived here necessarily since. I moved at the end of 99. Yeah, I moved to Atlanta in 2000. But man, just playing original music and getting any kind of support for it back then was so tough. I mean, there was little bits of it cropping up over in Peoria before I left with bands like Taxi War Dance and Mudvayne, and some of those guys. But like the Quad Cities and Monmouth and Macomb and Galesburg, that was tough, man. And it was the only way you could get gigs and get anybody to stick around was to play covers. So you play your mountain of covers, and, and then you try to squeak a couple of your own songs in and see if anybody noticed.
Wow, everybody's going to get drinks now. I wonder.
He practiced. He was lucky enough to be in Rich's house practicing with us. Remember Rich?
Oh yeah, Rich Harris.
With the crazy Cujo dog.
I think I was in the basement with you guys around that time. But I was practicing on the other side of the basement with Eric Kranz, with Chicken Boy Eric Kranz.
My favorite thing is I remember running into somebody that practiced down there's wife at a bar, and she said, "Hey, are you Brian?" And I was like, "Of course I am," because that's how I was. You know what I mean? Somebody recognized me. What?
That was total Paul Stanley.
It totally is, dude.
I thought I was Paul Stanley from like 14 until now.
Yeah.
But anyway, she said, "Yeah, my boyfriend or husband or whatever practices down in the same basement as you guys do," and he said that Kiss is practicing down there because there's because Terry had like the double bass purple Tama kit and then we had stacks of amps and a Marshall stack and 4 PV cabinets.
It was crazy down there.
And it was overkill.
I remember that.
We had like 2 monitors to sing through.
Absolutely, but it was hilarious because Jeff Stiles showed up with like 4 vintage Marshall 412s,
greenback 30s,
like real ones, like the real late 60s
actual
metal handles.
Fucking
and I think all of them have been spray painted black on the grill cloths, which is just blasphemy.
It
now.
really is.
and then so Brian went from having like 2 cabs to all right, check this out, motherfuckers, 2 more.
Right.
I fucking PVs with metal grills, and I had like the Carvin full stack.
Carvin stack, yes,
bringing it, man.
Yes.
Oh, we were too.
Fucking mail order babies,
dude.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to get to something though. I wanted to get it off my chest, and I just want to get past the elephant in the room. I'm sure that there's a lot of people that are going to watch this podcast because of the dynamic back then between you and me. And I just want to say that when you left Drophammer, since you were my best friend at the time, Tony, and we were doing that together, anything that would happen afterwards was purely because I was hurt and felt left and like I had something to prove to you. You know what I mean? Because you know how when you're making music with somebody and you're doing that, and then one of them decides to leave, it's almost like a girlfriend of 10 years leaving.
Yeah.
Right. And so you want to tear up their clothes and fucking break their stuff and throw it out the door and all that stuff, you know. And I was really hurt by that. And I know that I'm 100% sure it was impossible to work with me, because everything had to be my way and all that stuff. And what happens was you were worried about it with me and Jeff, but it ended up being me and you that both of us were a strong player in writing music and wanting it to go certain directions. And for that, you know, I didn't see it. I needed a dad or another friend to pull me up and go, hey man, just because Tony's writing good stuff too, or he has a hand in things, it's just going to make the band better.
Yeah. Don't
be a pussy and be afraid. I was really afraid that your stuff would be better than mine, or, you know, I would fall into the background. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, listen, you know, I mean, I was a little nervous coming into this too, but at the end of the day, it's been 20 years, you know, 20 years. Yeah. And this is something that probably could have been resolved 10 years ago.
I think it was,
you know, and I think there was a lot of, you know, I mean, yeah, there was definitely some combativeness and some hurt feelings and so on and so forth. But, you know, I mean, I have been through way too much stuff in my life at this point, and I'm sure you have too, to sit around and hold any grudges from the person that I was 20 years ago, which is a completely different person, you know?
Yeah, it's different.
And obviously, you know, surely with you too. I mean, if I'm not even remotely the same person I was 20 years ago, and it's just water under the bridge. And it's stupid to sit and hold on to that shit, because all it does is, I mean, for me, it just, you know, all it does, I mean, I can't sit and, you know, I wasn't completely, you know, without blame. So, you know, it's no big deal. It's cool. This is awesome. It's cool. We're getting to get together and do this, but it's definitely, you know, I don't expect an apology. I don't expect shit. I'm just glad we're getting to hang out and talk.
Yeah.
Well, I feel as though you deserve one, because I was really unprofessional in what I did afterwards. But you have to understand, there was some prompting, because I was getting ribbed by people. Tony quit Drophammer in the middle of recording Bring It Down, the first CD.
Yeah.
And I can actually tell you where he quit, because he does a backup vocal on one chorus, and then the next one it's me.
Yeah.
Because he literally quit in between that spot, and I had to go finish the backups.
Yeah.
And it was really hurtful. I remember talking to Keifer that recorded the CD, and we sat in the studio. I'm like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Drophammer doesn't exist without Tony. You know, I didn't see it going anywhere, and I'm like, this is our first record. How are we going to sell it? We can't play now. I don't know.
Well, holding. Can I don't want to, you know, arrest this moment, but in a lot of respects, there is a difference between, you know, holding a grudge or continuing to feel bad about something and the relief of closure, you know, where the moment where you can finally acknowledge the truth of things and move forward from there, you know, and it doesn't mean necessarily like you are holding on to this pain forever, but there is some part of us that needs something concrete in order to be able to actually have an end to something, like a real end to something. Even though all of the superficial stuff has gone away, you've reasoned your way through everything, you've figured out what your role was and what the other person's role was, and you've let go of any of the, you know, the attitude, you know, the blame attitude, or, you know, blaming yourself or blaming the other person. But there's that moment where there's a symbolic thing that happens between people, and it can't be done really any other way except to bring yourselves together in the same place and let it happen, man. And well, I want to say though that that the things that you said to him a moment ago was tremendously brave. I mean, that to me, that is why I look at Brian Miner and say, this guy's my friend, and he's somebody that I respect and want to be like and serve.
I've grown up a lot.
That is phenomenal.
I've got kids now. I have a wife. But I never finished my thought, and and I know that this looks really difficult for me, and it's awkward, but I've waited 20 years to talk to you face to face, Tony.
Yeah.
And to do it in this forum, I've had friends saying that's between you and Tony. You shouldn't do that on your podcast. But I feel like this is an okay forum for that because this is what this podcast is about, is honesty anyway. We both, I mean, people that are in a band and you have your comrades in your band, you got your guy that Tony that you could call at 2:00 in the morning. He'll answer his fucking phone, and you'll be like, "Look, man, I'm feeling like this. I don't know if I'm on the right path." And they'll build you back up, man. No, this is what you do. This is what you do. Let's keep at this. You keep going. You're good. All these things, and dreaming about being like Kiss someday, or you know what I mean. Having the same dreams, And when we separated, I mean, I was like, how am I going to find another guy that believes like that? That's what the first hurdle was, because that was like my first band that we were brothers in. Yeah. And then when it became, how am I going to find another dude that's going to be on my team like that?
Yeah.
It's always, then it's going to be somebody that comes in like, all right, so how does that one song, the one track, what's that, track 3? How does that start? Show me how it starts first. And I'm like, no, you're not the dude, man. You know what I mean? No. If you want to be in this band, you're going to already know all the shit when you show up.
You run into guys who give you non-committal lip service for like a week about whatever it is you're going to fucking do.
Yeah. That doesn't change.
No, it never does.
That still marches on.
Yeah, that shit goes on.
And luckily, I found another guy that was all in, and he believed in it too. And you remember, Tony, we were doing something that was already 15 years old.
Oh yeah,
double guitar leads, upper vocals, all that stuff.
We were in that painful gap between passe and retro.
Right.
Yeah, but what you got to remember, this is the funny part about that, is we say that now, but we were 15 years late to that. But we were probably 10 years early to the next wave of its start.
Yeah.
You gotta remember how I felt when Hammerfall came out, and I was like, just missed it by one word. God damn it. They were a way different band, but
I know.
But and just to be honest with you, man, I mean, some really dark shit came out of me after that, and. Terry used to rib me about it too. There was a guy running for sheriff or something in Monmouth, and his last name was Higbee.
That's my uncle.
It was your uncle? Mm-hmm. Well, he would nail them signs to my pine trees out in front of my house. Okay? So, but he thinks it's hilarious. Yeah, he thinks it's hilarious.
That's like marching down into the mine to mine the salt,
if you remember,
and then take the salt out and then rub it in your wounds.
I can't imagine. Yeah, Terry's harvesting the salt. Yeah, I would never imagine Terry doing that.
This was probably a year or two after it went down, but he would still. He's like, "Hey, Brian, come here, man. I just noticed something about your house." And we go out the street, and I look, and I'm like, "You son of a bitch!" And he's laughing his ass off.
They say that comedy is tragedy plus
exactly.
distance.
Terry didn't mean any harm by it. He was just being funny.
And that is fucking hilarious. That is fucking hilarious. Yeah. Way to go, Terry.
That might be the funniest thing I've ever heard Terry Hodges doing, like, ever.
Yeah, I'm sure that nobody had any minor signs in your yard.
Well, there was no minors running for political office in Warren County, So that's another thing, is he was actually literally bringing those signs from a completely different county to your house.
Yeah.
Well, Terry would. He had to sneak into somebody's yard and snatch it out of the yard too, right?
He's probably he was probably sneaking into like a sheriff deputy's yard. And, yeah, I could totally. Man, that's crazy.
But anything that I would have said or done after that would have purely been out of love, because I was really hurt. Yeah. Then and life goes on. But I just you remember being 24, and we've already talked about this. Yeah. You don't make the best decisions when you're faced with adversity or a loss like that, because you don't know how to. I didn't have the tools then to recognize that you act professional still, and you say okay, and you don't do anything to try to deface what they've done to that point in the band either.
Yeah,
So
well, I mean, truth be told, with that whole situation, and just with our age at that time in our lives, I mean, I'm gonna be 42 this year. And I mean, I didn't have I certainly didn't have any of the same tools to cope with, I mean, we're musicians, we're passionate. I mean, shit, I walked off the stage at a show the other night before the encore and threw a 30-second hissy fit because my side of the stage sounded like fucking shit. Yeah. But I'm literally standing on the side of the stage and I'm like, what the fuck? And these subwoofers and my mic stands vibrating across the fucking stage and blah, 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 blah. I'm losing my mind. And I'm literally out loud, I go, and I know I sound like a fucking asshole right now. I'll be good in 30 seconds. And then we walk out. That's amazing. We walk out because you recognize it now. But when you're in your 20s, you don't recognize that stuff. You don't recognize that energy, and you don't. I certainly didn't make great decisions. I mean, at the end of the day, other than just considering all the work that we had up to that point in that band, and considering how long of a friendship we'd had, one thing that I absolutely could have done differently in hindsight was I could have, at least attempted to grab you and be like, what the fuck? And, try to work through our shit. But the thing was, I was at a point in my life back then where I would rather just cut ties and bail than deal with a whole bunch of confrontation.
Yeah.
And, some of that had to do with, stuff I'd been through in my life up to that point. Honestly, a lot of it did, and I just did not deal with confrontation well at all. So if I knew it was going to be like that, and this is my bad, I would be the person that would be like, fuck this, I'm out. I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
When, that's a situation considering how much time was in that whole relationship, and how tight of friends we were up to that point, that I probably, looking back on it, could have handled that a lot better.
Sure. Sure.
And
cheap when things are going good.
I mean, granted, who knows? I mean, we're both in our early 20s. I could have tried that. It could have made things better. It could have made things worse.
Sure.
I don't know, but
Well, I can tell you this right now. It was definitely good fodder and good inspiration for me to try to get back at you through song somehow. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, quit Drophammer. Watch this. Or it's like, I'm gonna write the coolest fucking song
That's
ever.
What I mean. People have done some really great revenge work. What I mean?
Dude,
really fucking great revenge work.
I got a friend who shall remain nameless who dated somebody famous, and they broke up, and she wrote an entire record about him.
Awesome.
And it's kind of well known, and it was a pretty well received album.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's like,
I mean, for the most part, people.
I did that 3 times, but it didn't. I don't think I sold more than 1,000 copies of it.
Well, everybody's confused about love and loss because grief itself is the word we use to describe the confusion that happens when we lose something that we love, apparently, or we believe we've lost it.
So I had, in the Drophammer days, I had written like maybe 10, 12 songs, and I was honing in on that, trying to figure out which direction I was going. And then, Tony had 1 or 2 that you came in with off the cuff, and we, Gravity, something that I think that you pretty much had yourself. And anyway, and later on, here I am writing all these songs and really spending a lot of time on them. And then you like, well, here's one, check this one out. And then later on, after you're gone out of the band, everybody's like, man, my favorite Drophammer song is Gravity, man. And I'm like, fuck you. Fuck you.
Fuck and then, you. And skateboard you fucking rode in on.
After a while, I just have to go, it's a good, because they don't know who wrote it. They just know that it's a Drophammer song. So here I am like, you can't like that one. Why not? So, you can like anyone but that one. Man. Reprint the CDs without them on it.
Exactly. Get rid of him. Get rid of those songs. He's better than me.
Yeah, that was a cool song though.
Yeah, but in all honesty, I was so self-conscious about. I was so hard on myself about my songwriting that, and still sometimes to a fault am. That's why I write really slow. Mm-hmm. But I would. I probably had a dozen different ideas that you never heard.
Okay.
Because I didn't want you to hear them.
Yeah.
See, but I had this one idea and I forced I'm going to finish this song.
I'm sure that they were awesome. See, the difference between us was every idea that came out of me ended up on the record, or else I quit my own band. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, and I'm pretty sure that he quit because of World Without a Sun. probably it was our ballad that and it was all smushy. I'm just saying that in fun, but you go from we wanted to be kind of a heavier band, and here I am. Where do I begin?
Well, everybody knows that you had your hard rocker and you had your fucking ballad, and you got.
But I'm telling you, man, there's a lot of people. World Without a Sun affected a lot of people.
Yeah.
See, in this business, the best prizes that we can get, besides from you traveling the world like you're doing, and getting paid to be on vacation, basically, is
well, we'll find out about whether that's
I play guitar so I can golf.
Yeah, exactly. That's fucking awesome, dude. Oh,
but
shit.
After you sign, I just in this local community, I've probably signed 100 autographs, maybe, and people saying, making you feel special, and that's a drug for me, because especially when you're insecure like I am, and you have ego misplacement. People ask for your autograph. It's a really weird dichotomy, because it's like I want that, but then when they do it, I feel really weird. Like, why do you want my autograph? Exactly. I'm nobody. I'm not. Okay, and I'll say I just ruined your shirt. That sucks, right?
Yeah.
Hey, but it's the same reaction I have every time somebody hands me a Cinderella CD and goes, "Hey, would you sign my Cinderella disc?" I'm like, I didn't play on this, right? Yeah. You really want me? I don't know if you want me to do this.
Yeah. So once you do that a little bit, and then you have people say, "Hey, this one song really got me through this time," or this song meant this to me, and then all of a sudden you're a part of their life that way. I've had that happen a lot too, and that's worth more than anything. And when I got to a certain age, I'm just telling you what road I went down, Tony, afterwards. Absolutely. Just so that I want to get to all of your I want to end positive and also on the great thing that you're doing now. But for me, it was a decision of how long am I going to chase this rabbit, And when I got with Danelle and I decided, okay, I was 37. I was like, okay, I've seen the guys around. I've seen them that are 52 and they're still thinking they're going to get a record deal and get big, and good for them. That's their life. But when you base your entire life around it, like I did, with no kids, no marriage, like, you can't have a job that works on weekends. You base your life around this thing, so you're suffering. You have these shitty jobs so that you can play in your band,
right?
Yeah. And you're turning down girls because they want to get married, and all this stuff. But pretty soon I found out that, hey man, you might be missing the next chapter of what you need to go to, Brian. It's not going to happen, and if you keep chasing it, you're gonna miss life. For me.
Yeah.
And so I decided when Danelle and I decided to have a baby and she got pregnant, I immediately said, I'm putting my guns on the table. I'll play on some weekends and do some covers and stuff, maybe do this and that here and there, but I'm not going to leave. And of course, as soon as I do that, the offers come.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah.
Like, hey, here's this band that's going on tour. Would you like to play guitar? Because that's my dream. It's always been everybody's dream, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I thought, well, no, my tour is kids now, and my family, and so I kind of went down that road, and now it's kind of impossible for me. But I wouldn't have it any other way. But then as soon as that happens, I get on my Facebook, and then Tony's playing with Tom Keifer and touring the world, and I'm like, all
these grapes are so sour. They're so sour.
But I decided that, and it's tough, man. It's tough.
He's evil.
I am evil. I am so evil. He knows. No, he sees the real me.
So, and my burning question, Tony, is. And let me clear one thing up too. It's not like if I didn't have kids, I would have been presented with an opportunity like you have, or like Kiss would have called me to take Ace's place. Them opportunities weren't going to be brought up to me because I wasn't going to move to Nashville or Atlanta or get around people. I was going to stay here. So it's not like that ruined anything for me. It's just I decided to stay here. And my burning question though for you is, when you moved to Atlanta, what did you do there?
I moved to Atlanta. I grew up in Monmouth. Obviously, you knew that.
Mm-hmm. We ate many a Tombstones there.
Oh,
Chips Ahoy cookies.
Many a Tombstone.
Back when Tombstones were actually still delicious.
Your grandma used to send me home with a baggie full of Chips Ahoy cookies.
I'm here to visit her this weekend. Like, I'm going to be seeing her. But I got out of college, and for me, I went to Western to finish and got a degree.
What was your degree in?
Public communication and human relations.
Hey, there you go. All right.
So I started at Sandburg. I worked in the slaughterhouse in Monmouth for a year before that.
Wow.
I'd definitely been around, but for me, I got out of college and I kind of had this deal with my mom. It was like, she was like, you know what, you can go chase any dreams you want. Try to do whatever it is that you want to do. I'm totally cool with that, but please do me a favor and go to college and get a degree. So that way you have something you can do.
Right.
Or you have something to fall back on, per se, with, if you decide you want to bail out of the music thing. So I did. And then at the time I was working at Co-op in Galesburg, Co-op Tapes and Records, and I was basically managing that and working part-time over at the Laser in Galesburg, DJing. And
did you have a radio voice?
Yeah.
Did you do like, hey, this is Tony Higbee?
No, you know what? It was funny. I would talk to people and be like, oh, you sound like you should be on the radio, which I thought was pretty hilarious. I don't know about that, but it was fun. And some of those guys are still there, like Chris LeGros and
okay, yeah,
and so it was great, and it was a good hang. It was great people, and then I was still playing in a cover band every weekend, trying to make ends meet, plus going to school full time. So I was 2 jobs, a cover band, and full time in college. And I got out of there, and I moved to Atlanta for a couple reasons. Number one, when I was working at Co-op, there's a couple bands that come out that were from Atlanta, and I really, was like, man, these bands are cool. Initially, it was Seven Dust. It was from Atlanta. And I remember hearing them, and I saw them at the Metro in Chicago opening for like Power Man 5000.
Wow, Rob Zombie's brother.
Yeah, there was a girl up there at the time that I was kind of dating, and I'd go up and see her, and I saw them. I was like, oh, what a cool heavy band, what a great energy. And then another band, even more so, is the Marvelous Three, which I don't know if you guys know who they are. Butch Walker's band before, you know, and loved that band. And then I was looking for some place to move, just to get out of the area, man. I'd been here all my life. I didn't need to see another cornfield for a long, long time. And I was just like, I got to go somewhere else. And I kind of wanted to start fresh because, you know what it's like when you grow up in an area and you've been there long enough that people have expectations of who you are and what you are based on what they know of you for the time that you spent growing up there. Yeah. But none of us are even remotely the same person when we're 30 that we are when we're 20, much less 35 or 40. And for me, especially being in Monmouth, which was such a small town, such a small area, in Galesburg, I didn't have anything tying me there anymore other than maybe my grandparents. My parents had left. My brother and sister were getting raised down in Mississippi at that point. And so I decided I want to go, I wanted to find a spot, a big city. I wanted to try living in a bigger city. And I wanted to be closer to them because it was like a 14-hour drive from Monmouth. It was brutal. But I wanted to be far enough away that I had my own space, that I was on my own. So I moved to Atlanta because it wound up being, that would be about a 4.5, 5-hour drive to my mom's place from there. So I just moved there. I didn't know anybody there.
That's kind of good, though.
No, wait. That's so you just get in your car and drive, or did you look for a place first, find an apartment, and then
I got out of college. I graduated in January 2000. I went down to my mom's, moved all my shit out of my apartment from next door to Ted's down there. I stayed there for a week or two. I went and interviewed, I put in a resume or an online thing or whatever, went and interviewed at Guitar Center in Atlanta, got a job. Like I went in, I interviewed, I got hired on the spot. I asked the guy who hired me, I said, do you know of any place fairly close by that I could find that's a decent place to live, just an apartment? And he pointed me over to an apartment complex that was like 2 blocks away. And I went over and I looked in an apartment and I took it. And I went back to my mom's in Mississippi and I was there 2 weeks later and I lived there for almost 3 years.
You get there, you get moved in, you live there for 3 years. What kind of musical connections then did you make, and how did your job at Guitar Center kind of serve your finding people? Because I worked at a music store for about 10 years, and while I was there, I met everybody in town. Yeah. I mean, like, everybody after you work there for a while. Yeah, it's a great place to be.
I remember a few things about living down there as far as those connections and stuff being made and just friends being made is the rock scene was really, that's the best that rock scene in that city has ever been.
Wow.
Because I got there and you had the Marvelous Three and you had Seven Dust, but you also had Double Drive and you had Stereo Mud and you had Injected and you had all these just killer rock bands. And then I actually wound up in a band, probably the heaviest thing I ever played in. It was called Simple Sick Device. and I was playing bass still. By far the closest up to that point I probably ever got to getting signed and having something implode. And it was just, once again, it was still, guys in their 20s and egos and
yes.
But I lived there and did that. And I would meet people in Guitar Center, but I was working there for a week or two, and then James Eha from the Smashing Pumpkins walks in. I'm just like, you can't miss that guy.
No.
That's James Eha from the Smashing Pumpkins. I sold him a vintage Vox and a Rickenbacker.
Excellent.
Helped him go load it out into the limo.
Yeah,
the limo.
Takes off.
I was hoping you'd say his VW Bug or something.
Are we talking like a copper panel AC30?
Oh, yeah, no, it was a legit 62 head and cab with the piggyback car.
Yeah.
It was the real deal.
Yeah. I'm playing through a 62 AC30 combo right now myself.
Come on, dude. Look at you.
Badass.
So,
here we go.
Badass.
Here we go. This is where it starts.
I got a Line 6 back here. It's got a blue setting on it.
But then and then I met weeks later, I met Jeff Keith walked in out of nowhere from Tesla. And I'm like, that's Jeff Keith from Tesla. It's like, somebody's like, how do you know that? I'm like, it's Jeff Keith from Tesla.
Yeah.
No. And then Butch, would come in the store a lot. And I actually got to know him a little bit. He was a cool guy. And I think I even bought a used Roland recording unit off of him at one point. But
awesome.
He was like, I accidentally found some of his demos in it.
Nice.
Forgot to erase the hard disk, I see.
So that bootleg will be coming out. No.
Yeah, right.
Well, he worked at Music Go Round here in the Quad Cities. And who is the most famous person that you ever dealt with? And we're talking about Davenport here.
Yeah.
That I actually dealt with, maybe not just was in the store, because obviously, there would be people there when I wasn't working, but probably the most famous person that I dealt with was Joe Bonamassa.
Yeah.
And then I come in second, right?
Yeah, and then Brian Miner.
And then Brian Miner from Drophammer.
No,
but,
not really.
So what took you to Nashville then?
Well, okay, so Simple Sick Device broke up, and I wasn't tied to anything once again. And a buddy of mine named Denny Smith called. And Denny's from Pekin.
I know Denny.
You know Denny.
I've heard of Denny.
Denny called me, and he was trying to he had lived in Nashville briefly, and he was trying to move back and start a new band, and he'd found this singer, this really charismatic guy named Michael Clark, and this drummer named Billy Baker. It was kind of like the Cult meets with a touch of Mother Love Bone thrown in. Just really cool band. Singer was super charismatic, amazing voice. But Billy was a monster drummer, man. First time I ever walked in, he's got a 28-inch kick drum. Like, this guy's my cat, right?
Yeah, that's right. Like Matt Finn.
Matt Finn, exactly. Yeah.
So I moved to Nashville and joined this band called Bombshell Crush, and we kicked it around for
I'm sure Chuck Murphy just pissed his pants because he said Bombshell Crush.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you remember Chuck?
Oh God,
yeah,
yes, of course.
So he's like, ask him, hey, ask him this, ask him that, ask him this. I'm like, Chuck. I didn't even respond. I'm just like, stop, man.
Hey, Chuck's a great guy, and Chuck's a huge advocate for music around here.
He is, man.
Yeah,
I've known Chuck for ages. I'm responsible for Chuck liking the Wild Hearts. So
that's the story he wanted you to talk about. He said he's got an epic Wild Heart story. Yeah. That's what he said.
Yeah, so. I said, you know how epic it was? Hey, Tony, what are you listening to? Go buy that disc. That's the story.
That's the story?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
What a letdown.
Yeah, I know.
Thanks, Chuck.
God.
Thanks, Chuck.
Total limp dick.
Now I'm going to have to actually edit some shit out of this thing.
Damn it.
No, I told him to go buy the second Wild Hearts record. It's called Fuck You.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing album. Yeah. You would love it.
Yeah.
And he went and bought it, and then he pretty much wound up buying the whole catalog. But Chuck and I had hung out before. I remember going to see King's X at the Pig Pen.
Nice.
With Chuck.
Yeah.
I don't know. I might have been at that show.
Yeah,
I've seen him there twice.
It was King's X and Galactic Cowboys.
I didn't see that show.
Yeah.
Because they must have played there more than twice then.
Yeah. So, anyways, but I moved to Atlanta. Moved to Nashville from Atlanta. I joined Bombshell Crush. I did that.
When I want what I got, I'll believe it. Taken back to a long, long time ago.
And then when that kind of fizzled out, my brother, Cody, by this point had moved to Nashville. He's 8 years younger than me. He's a rock solid bass player, really good bass player. And at that point, I'd been in original bands and I was writing here and there, but I really wanted to take the bull by the horns and get more into the writing thing. So I started a band called Caprice. We had just bought a house, we got married, and that would have been, like I said, August 28th. And then in December, I came here for Christmas. And before I come here for Christmas, I came down with a like I got real bad bronchitis, real sick, like in November. I've been downstairs working in my basement of this house we bought. You know,
black
paint,
mold.
shit. Yeah, God only knows. I don't even want to know what's in that wall. There's probably
black mold.
Black mold.
Black mold. Anyways,
the plague.
Yeah, the plague's down there. Yeah,
exactly. Bring out your dad.
Yeah. So I'm down there, and I just sick, and we had a show coming up in December. Caprice did, just before Christmas, and I couldn't talk. So I went to the doctor.
So you were singing for Caprice?
Yeah, lead singer, and I was playing guitar at this point.
See, that's what I was interested in figuring out when you made that switch. You're like, you know, fuck this bass. And so since Cody played such good bass,
I was like, I want to be in a band with my brother.
And writing songs, you always did on a guitar anyway, right? So why not?
Yeah, absolutely. I was, and honestly, let's before I continue with the saga, let's be real honest. There's like this many people on Earth that look cool fronting a band and playing bass.
Yeah,
and one of them just died.
Yeah, you're right.
You know,
you're right.
Yeah. So it was like, there was Lemmy, and there's Phil Lynott, and Sting.
Yeah.
And
well, you got Geddy Lee.
Geddy.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
You know, and there may be one or two more out there.
But
Blackie Lawless to some. I don't want to piss off anyone. You know, so, but that being said, so it was more comfortable. You know how it is too. When you're playing, you hit a big A chord and you can sing over the top of it.
Oh man!
Versus standing there trying to do left brain, right brain. I'm going to sing this melody, but I'm going to play this melody on bass and also try to look cool.
Well, even though I was the singer and guitar player in Drophammer, there was no looking cool for the first like 4 years of that band because I had my guitar to my chin.
Yeah, dude.
I've got video of us playing where you got your bass up here.
Oh,
you know, I think Jeff was the only one that wore it like a real man. You know, I was like, I can't reach the arpeggios this way. I got to have it up here like a ukulele. You know,
whatever. It's like I can't tap on the bass as well when it's clear down here.
And then Terry's like,
I need to tap.
Yeah, and Terry goes, you know, everybody can see your dick when your guitar's that high, man. I was like, oh, we're lowering that thing. These plastic pants show everything. He's probably
like, well, shit. I've been wearing these plastic. What if they can't see my dick? What does that mean?
That's the problem. Yeah.
So
I know you're a fucking Gentile.
Anyways, so we wound up that was where that switch was made.
Because we used to do that in Split. We'd switch instruments. I would play the bass, and then you would play the guitar, and I would look over, and you were strumming from here, like, and I was like, and I look at my guitar. There's like a rainbow of scratches all the way like across the pick, like on the back of the guitar somehow, like all the way around the guitar somehow. And I'm like, he gets at it.
And
he still had his bass pick that was a pick like
that's
this.
What I mean.
He was still using a pick like this big.
Well, it was that big at the beginning, but he was wearing that fucker down like a Crayola.
I was just trying to give him some character. Give those guitars some character.
Yeah,
right. More zazz.
Exactly. Because it's just not zazzy enough.
Who put this sawdust in front of my microphone? This is
hang on, let me wipe this pick residue off my guitar so I can play it again. Yeah.
So it's like he will fuck your guitar up. He's a guitar destroyer. You know.
That's amazing.
But yeah, so I started doing that, and you know, it was a lot more. You know what it was? It was kind of a challenge. And there was something about guitar at that point in my life that was a little bit more of a challenge to me. It was a little bit more exciting. You know, because honestly, a lot of the songs, it's like, you know, you need to know on bass, you need to know when not to play.
Yeah.
Right.
And my brother knows when not to play.
And then you found yourself in that position. Like, look at me, man. I'm playing guitar and I'm doing it. I made it, and everybody, people are buying it. That I'm a guitar player now. I'm not a bass player anymore.
Yeah. You know, it was like I said, I think once again, because you know, I talking about our heroes were guitar players.
Sure.
It was a little, it felt kind of natural for me in a lot of ways to play guitar. And I played in the band in bands over time with such good rhythm players. You, Ted. I mean, Ted's got the meanest right hand of anybody I know.
Oh my God, it's sick.
It's ridiculous, you know. And guys like that, plus a lot of my favorite players when I was coming up, like Jakey Lee, you know, and those guys, or Warren, you know, in a different way, Nuno. I mean, rhythmically, we're just so tight.
We were.
And
you just named three dudes I'd love to talk to for like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what
I mean? You know what? I think I've talked to a couple of them. I talked to Jake. That was it. That was crazy because that was a surprise. I've talked to Nuno's a cool dude. You got to get to know him a little bit. Really cool guy though, and still just. You sit and you watch him play, and you're like, "Are you kidding me?"
He's
like,
he's
really,
a monster.
He's really good.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But you know, and then. Yeah, it was a challenge. It was fun. I love just strapping on a Les Paul and going for it. you know, and it just kind of became, you know, it was more enjoyable to front a band that way, and it just kind of stuck, you know, and that's kind of how that happened.
You know, I kind of did something similar. I decided to put the guitar down altogether and just let somebody else play guitar and just be the singer frontman, because I needed to go through that to kind of prove to myself that I could.
Yeah, because I'll be honest with you, one of the things that I was curious about coming in here, I was like, why does he not fucking play guitar anymore?
Right, yeah.
And I don't mean that. I mean that in the most flattering, complimentary way, because you got a great voice.
It sounds like your reasons aren't that far apart.
Yeah,
because 412s are heavy.
About it, yeah. Oh, yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying?
All my Oompa Loompas quit.
Oh, yeah. It's like,
to a different factory.
It's like, do I want to just show up and hook up a microphone and watch everybody else fuck with batteries and cords and stuff? I was kind of burnt on the whole... You know, you get to a certain spot where you're like, oh, that's Brian Miner. He's the shredder, want to be a guitar player, or this guy. And then I was like, you know what? But I can sing too. And I bet you if I took the guitar away and took because you know when you're playing guitar, you sing a little bit. You're kind of occupied, and you can't really do 100% of either one.
Caught between worlds.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And
I can see
you
that.
can get caught in that. Like you're paying attention too much to one thing or the other. And I was like, I just want to see, because I've always been insecure of my voice.
Yeah.
Because people are, you know, they always want to make these comparisons. You sound like Geddy Lee, or you sound like Slaughter. You know, I'm like, fuck you. I sound like Sebastian Bach in here.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Up here, I sound like Sebastian Bach, and it's gonna happen someday.
You sound like that one dude in Head East.
Right? It's like, thanks. Yeah, that's wonderful. So I wanted to prove that I could sing. And I could pick some tough stuff to sing and do it. So there was a challenge to me too, to just be the singer, because you remember, like, to have a singer, they're a different kind of person than the guitar player or the bass player or the drummer. So to do that, you have to have balls.
Oh,
I always thought that the singer that just came out with a mic, that was the guy that he had nothing to hide behind.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, that's part of the reason why I think people that only sing but don't play other instruments tend to have weird denial-based personalities. I mean, the people that are like only lead singers, they're fucking mutants in the music world as far as I'm concerned.
Anymore.
They're on their own trip. I mean,
well, you know what it is there's a... I understand exactly what you're saying. The guitar, if you're fronting a band, there is a certain safety net comfort feeling to having a guitar over your shoulders.
Yeah.
If you are just holding a microphone, it doesn't feel like you have that barrier between you and the audience, and you have to be fearless.
Yeah.
Fearless.
Yeah.
And
public speaking, it's a podium.
Yeah.
The podium.
Yeah.
You know
What's
what
funny is, you know, for me, the hardest challenge, I think a lot of singers would say this, it's not nearly as hard for me to walk out and be fearless in front of a couple thousand people as it is for me to walk out and be fearless in front of 20.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep,
It's a lot
exactly.
more intimate.
Man, I'm right with you on that.
Yeah, you know,
I'm right with you on that.
Because
There's
the
power in numbers
dynamic
that way.
is so much more complex, because you can't deal with the crowd as if it's one force.
Yeah.
Now you have to deal with the individual forces of the 20 people
it's
that
hard.
are there.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
you're making direct eye contact
Totally.
with every person in the room.
Yeah, you
versus
sense
look
their
out.
uniqueness.
Sometimes
Everybody's
I'm sitting in my garage, you know, and
Yeah.
I'm strumming out some, you know, driving home this evening. Could have swore we were, and somebody's walking a dog, right? And you shut up, and you're like, all right. But if you had 500 people, you'd just be rocking it, right?
I know, man.
But
Sometimes
somebody
I
walking
like to
their
get
dog,
weird
that's
on
like
people,
the
though.
worst audience I could have. Some lady walking her dog. Like, what the hell are you doing, asshole? Would you shut it? If I kept going, they'd be uncomfortable too.
They're walking their dog.
Maybe walk out to them like,
they're like, you're sharp.
Yeah, exactly. God damn it! Why is everybody more musician than me?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when I'm at a party or something, and somebody's, hey, why don't you sing us some songs? And I'm like, fuck
you're a
you.
comedian? Be
Right?
funny.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, give me like
Yeah.
500 drunk people that
Yeah.
want to dance, and
Yeah,
I'll do okay. Which reminds me of we're getting to the part where you get to Nashville, and I'm dying to know. Did you work for Gibson at one point, or
I did.
Okay,
I worked for Gibson for a few years. I was doing sales training all around the Southeast. Like, you know, I go visit stores and tell them all about, you know, this is the new stuff coming out. And here's all the. I was a guitar nerd, so I'd be like, well, you know, these guitars have these pickups, and these have these pickups, and this has this neck, and blah blah blah, and that finish is different because of this, you know, that stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, kind of did that gig and drove a lot. Well, when me and my wife got married, we had bought a house that year, and I think we closed our house in March. We got married in October, And as I was telling you, I got really sick. I got a cold, and I went to the doctor and I got, shots. I went and did this show at the Exit Inn in Nashville and with Caprice, and it was a good show, and I felt pretty much better, and I came home for the holidays. And I woke up Christmas morning and I had the sniffles again. It's kind of a scratchy throat and all that. But man, I've been over at my dad's family's the night before for Christmas Eve. Bunch of snot-nosed kids running around. There's like 50 people shoved in this house. God only knows what's going on. So I just woke up like, oh God, it's coming back on me. So I go back home and it just kind of lingered for a couple days. And I woke up a few days after Christmas and I had pneumonia.
Oh.
I went from the sniffles, I went to bed and I woke up with pneumonia.
Yeah.
And I knew it because I'd had it once in college, and I was like, oh, crap. So I got in the car and drove myself to the doctor. And my wife went on to work. I was like, it's okay, honey, I got this. I call in sick to work. I drive myself to the nurse practitioner. And, the one I'd seen the first time who gave me the shots, and she's like, all right, yeah, a lot of people are getting sick, coming back, and they're sicker, and this and that and the other. Here's a breathing treatment. We're going to put you on these horse-sized, antibiotics. And before you leave, let me get you a chest x-ray. I just want to see how bad your pneumonia is if you need to be in the hospital. So she does a chest x-ray on me. And I get this x-ray, or she does the x-ray, and I'm standing in the room where they've got it up on the screen after it's done. And I look, and I'm like, what's that? And the girl goes, oh, it's probably just gas or something. We see stuff like that all the time. And what I saw was this black mass, right over by my lung. It was like the size of almost a fist.
Whoa.
And I'm like, about the size of an orange. I'm like, all right. So the nurse practitioner comes in and she looks at it and she goes, so we're gonna, I saw something on your x-ray. I just want to make sure it's nothing. We're gonna go ahead and get you in for a CT scan, CAT scan. I'm like, all right, cool. So when do I go? Who do I need to call to make the appointment? Oh, they're waiting for you right now over at Vanderbilt. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Because know what it's like to go get something done like that. And you're like, I go in and I drink the contrast and they cut me in line in front of all these people that have been waiting. I'm like, all right, what the hell's going on? So I go and I get this chest scan. I get done and I get out and I'm like, well, how long till she has a result? And I'm thinking days or weeks. Oh, we should have them back to her by the time you get back to the office. And I'm just like, so I'm going back there? Like, yeah. Like, okay. So I drive myself back there and I sit down and she's like, all right, so I don't really know how to tell you this. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, you've got lymphoma.
Wow.
So I find out I have cancer. And I'm like, fuck, Right. I mean, 3 days after Christmas and my wife's at work and I'm there by myself and I find out I've got lymphoma and they don't know if I've got what kind of lymphoma I have. And there's Hodgkin's and there's non-Hodgkin's. Right. And Hodgkin's is a semi-specific thing, and non-Hodgkin's, there's a million different kinds, and it's, but regardless, it's scary stuff. So I go home and tell my wife that night, and then I had to wait because it was 3 days after Christmas, and all the specialists are
out. Yeah.
They're out.
They're in Barbados or whatever. Yeah.
And so I go through this, this waiting and the anxiety, and I have to tell my mom and my dad, and they're coming up to visit and they're flying in, and I'll tell you what, there's something right there. First time I've seen my parents in the same room with each other in well over a decade.
Wow.
Since before they were divorced and stuff, and so just it was just, the whole thing was surreal. And I finally get into a specialist, and they do this biopsy through my neck. I've actually got a scar.
Yeah, I see
still,
it.
and they're like, when I get in to see him, they're rushing me through stuff, and he's like, well, all right, so the first two tissue samples we checked, we can't find any signs of cancer. What I'm wondering, you may, he's telling me the different things that I might have, and one of them is this this thing, where all the organs in your body slowly harden until you die.
Nice.
And it's like there's nothing to fix it. And I'm just like, fuck, and then like 15 minutes later, his phone rings. He goes, yep. Okay, because I'm in his little, space, and he hangs up. He goes, "You've got Hodgkin's disease," and he was like almost excited about it because he was scared it was the other thing. Right. He was like, "It's gonna suck, but I can treat this. Your chances are really, really good." So I did the 6 months of chemo, lost all my hair, looked like powder, got through all that stuff. I was in remission like after 4.5 months. But they make you do the whole thing. It's kind of like antibiotics. You got to finish the whole thing.
Yep.
So I got, deathly ill from that. Got done with that. And then at that point, within a couple of months, I was just like, man, I do not want to drive all the time anymore. I was exhausted. It took me 2 years to feel normal again.
Yeah.
And it was just like every couple of months I'd wake up and go, wow, I feel great. But it was because I got to feeling so bad that I didn't realize I didn't realize what good felt like anymore. Right. So every couple of months I'd wake up and be like, whoa, I feel a lot. Wow, I feel awesome. And this went on for 2 years. I just kept feeling better and better and better.
That's
but needless to say, I didn't want to be in a car driving all over the Southeast. So Guitar Center wanted me back. They're like, will you come run what they call platinum and vintage, which is just high-end guitars and vintage guitars. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And I went back and started doing that and got off the road. And, you know, the thing was, I had that band Caprice with my brother and my brother-in-law, and this other cat named Jesse Floyd, who was there for, I'd say, a good bit of it. We had a couple other sub-guitar players that kind of floated in and out. And we had a pretty good head of steam going, too. But as soon as I got sick, it was, you know, I had guys that were like, hey, I do A&R for Atlantic, or here's my card, and we checking you out. Just little stuff here and there. Nothing. It wasn't like there were papers on the table and stuff was about to get signed, but there was definitely interest, you know. And it was pretty huge for me, you know, just like I was trying to prove to myself I could front this band and play guitar and be the primary songwriter. And I didn't know how I was doing, but it was this huge boost of confidence. Then I get sick and it's like, sorry, good luck.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
Because, I mean, who can blame anybody? I mean, you sign somebody to a record deal, who wants to give a guy in advance that might die?
Right.
Yeah. And that band, band pretty much became the band that had the stigma of Caprice. Oh, yeah, great rock band. The singer had cancer. And Cody and I were like, man, you know what? Let's just do that. Let's just start from scratch, change the band name, all new songs, new members, change the direction a little bit. Something that's a little more like our influences, AC/DC.
Yeah, dude. Get some dynamics range back into the music, man.
Yeah, so we started doing the East Side Gamblers, and I remember literally like within 6 weeks, we were playing our first show as a power trio with like a couple of new original songs. And, you know, we're playing this little club called The Basement. We're playing like The Bomber by the James Gang. And I'm just like having a blast.
And that's the band you're in now.
Yeah.
And that is Backwater Gamblers? What is it called?
No, the East Side Gamblers.
The East Side
Backwater Gamblers. That's a ski team.
I thought you guys were a ski team.
No, East Side Gamblers.
Called? You guys were called the Steam Wheelers? What was that?
The New York Jets.
So anyways, but yeah, well, I live in East Nashville. So is my brother, you know, and everybody calls it the East Side. So I was like, all right, the East Side Gamblers. You know how hard it is to find a decent band name for a rock and roll band that hasn't already been taken? Man, there are some terrible fucking band names out there right now, too. Like, every once in a while I hear some band's name on the radio, and I'm just like, that's your name?
Dude.
That is horrible.
Random Boners.
Random Boners.
I'm joking.
I was going to say, that's brilliant.
It's better than some of them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
sometimes it hits me like, that's a great rock band name, you know, and it's too bad I don't have a band to name it. But
well, I always think it is, but then the pot wears off, and then I'm like, man,
you know that moment when you're trying to bring it to the rest of the guys, you're like, hey, let's try to name the band. What do you got?
Yeah.
Well, I got the Puppet Masters. All right, what do you got?
It's so brutal.
Well, yeah.
Because you and I have been a part of some terribly named bands.
Oh, yeah.
Well, as a matter of fact, I think Drophammer, you voted against that name.
Did I?
I believe you did.
I don't remember.
I still have the votes that we took in the band, the pieces of paper that we all threw into the hat. I still have them in an album somewhere.
In the pantheon of band names that I have been associated with, that name is at least in the top 20 percentile.
Yeah.
Of good names.
Drophammer, you mean?
On the good end, yeah. It's in the top 20% of good.
And it's got to be one word, too. It can't be two words.
Mine's two words.
Or can be three.
But you got to have a number. You got to have a number in your band name.
Yeah. We're 3 Hammer Drop.
3 Hammer Drop.
Yeah. So anyway.
we're called Drophammer 1, 2.
3 Dropped Hams.
I know there's some YouTube stuff. There's a lot of YouTube stuff. We did a charity show last year for... we actually raised money for a friend of ours that is battling cancer.
Oh, goodness.
Excellent.
And a little side tangent there. The show is called Chemokazi.
Yep.
I've heard of that whole thing started because when I was sick, my best friend down in Atlanta, he was an old roommate of mine, David Munn. He calls me up. He's like, man, I just don't know what to do. Is there anything I can do for you? And I said, you know what? I said, do you have like an old PlayStation that you don't use anymore or something like that? Just something that I can do to sit and kill the hours while I'm sick. Because, you know, it's a lot of time where you just feel like you've got a terrible fucking flu and you're just sick and you're aching, your bones ache and all that. So he shows up and comes to visit, and he brings me this a brand new Xbox, And I got the whole thing with the, so we could talk, play games against each other via Wi-Fi and all that.
And he smoked you all the time, right?
Oh, actually, you know what? It's really sad is that I never got to the point where I even had any of the same games that was good enough to play against.
Oh, yeah, no.
But I had to set up a screen name. And because I was doing chemotherapy at the time, I jokingly made my screen name Chemokazi.
Terrific.
And so then it stuck, and then we did the first one of those benefits was actually a benefit some friends put on for me, and then we've done a few of them since then. And every time we do it, it's for, usually involves whatever band I'm in and a bunch of friends, and it's always a cancer-related charity. And this last one wound up being the biggest one, but we got just some ridiculous names to get up and play.
Lizzie Hale, Snake Sabo,
Snake and Rachel,
yeah.
Wow. Damon Johnson from Brother Kane and Thin Lizzy and Black Star Riders, and gosh, who else?
Let's get to that, Tony. I mean, how do you get around these people? Because when I do the All-Star Jam, I don't see fucking Yngwie calling me, and like, hey, dude, I'll be a part of your shit.
They all live there.
Okay, they all live.
You'd be shocked how many people have moved to Nashville in the last few years.
I have heard Nashville referred to as the Alamo of the music industry.
It kind of is
like
now.
the last stand of.
How in the fuck do you end up in Tom Keifer's band?
You ready for this one?
Yeah,
I love it.
All right, so years right when I first moved there, I'm going to give you the deep version. So when I first moved there, one of the very first, I guess, known musicians that I met, I was in Bombshell Crush, and there's this band opening for us called Naked Beggars. The bass player is Eric Brittingham, and Eric and his wife had the band. So I met Eric, got to know him, great guy. And Eric and I were having a conversation. I think I bought a rack from him. I bought the guys at Bombshell Crush will remember this and hate me for it, but I bought this giant 20 space fucking rack in it, and I put 2 all tube SVT heads in this thing.
Yes,
it weighed 7. You could have anchored a barge in the Mississippi with this thing. It weighed so much. But I got my head, I got my back up, and I got a tool drawer, and I got a wireless. It was this huge thing. I bought this rack from Eric, and the rack looked like it had been dragged behind a truck all over the world 4 times because it pretty much had.
Yeah.
It had Cinderella stickers all over it and everything, Anyways, I think that rack lives with Dan Seago in Pekin now as part of his sound company. I think I unloaded that on him a couple years later because those guys were ready to kill me for hauling it.
Good riddance.
But I get to know Eric, and we're talking, and he goes, He goes, we're looking for somebody, if you know anybody who's a utility player. I'm like, utility? And he goes, yeah. He goes, let's make it play keys, maybe some other instruments and sing. And, well, it turns out my wife's sister, she wasn't my wife at the time, but, we were dating. Her sister had moved there with her. Christine is exactly that person. She plays keys. She plays fiddle. She could play a little bit of, she played mandolin, I think. She might be able to play a little bit of guitar. She can sing. She can write. Just, a quadruple threat. So I hooked them up, and she wound up being in the band. And she was in the band for pretty much the duration from that point on.
And we're still talking about Naked Beggars.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So that was how I got to know Eric. And we always kind of got, stayed tight. Well, then Jeff moved here a couple years into that and wound up joining Naked Beggars, LeBar.
Right.
So I got to know LeBar.
Who was singing in the Naked Beggars? Did I miss that?
Eric's wife.
Okay.
Ina.
All right.
So, Jeff moved here, and that's how I got to know Jeff. Well, then through Eric and Jeff, Fred comes to town to visit because Cinderella's getting ready to go out and do a tour. And Fred says, and Fred is like, hey guys, I need to get a drum thrown, some other stuff. And who do I go see? Oh, go see Tony over at Guitar Center. So he comes and get to know Fred. Another great guy. I mean, they're all great guys. And then the last person that I met out of that band was Tom. And Tom's a great guy. Tom has lived in Nashville since the mid-'90s, I think.
Wow.
And a lot of people don't even realize it. When I was in Bombshell Crush, a Tom Keifer sighting was like a Sasquatch sighting.
Okay.
It'd be like, dude, I saw Tom Keifer at the Home Depot today.
No, I don't think he exists.
And I'm going to interject. Remember where you're at because I want to validate just in case Tom Keifer happens to peek in here, which he probably won't. But if he did, I will validate the fact that Tony has always been a fan of Tom Keifer's vocals.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I remember us talking about seeing them. That dude's vocals are always on. You know, he's one of them guys that can always do it night after night after night. I remember having that conversation with you. It's like some singers suck. You know, like I don't want to get like too far in, but like Sebastian Bach sometimes wasn't on tour. You know, but Tom Keifer seemed to always kind of be consistent.
Yeah, he's a super consistent guy. He works really hard.
So, anyways, he was truly a fan of yours before he. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh no. I made no bones about that. Absolutely. I've always thought. I mean, as far as that whole decade, though, there's a few guys that I feel like, and I'm not blowing smoke. There's a few bands that I think their albums could have come out in the '70s with different production or in the '90s with different production.
Yeah.
And would have held up. Because the material was great. And I think Cinderella's one of those bands.
Night Songs fucked me up. I loved that song and that record. I mean, Jesus, man, that was so cool. There was something about it that just had that. And then you had some copiers like Girl School or Brittany Fox things like this. That it seems like anytime anything hits like that, then there's like 4 more bands that sound exactly like it.
That's the industry.
Yeah.
And what happens is it turns into a production thing. You know, like one album blows up, and then all the producers are trying to make what they're working on sound like that record. I mean, think about how many mid '80s records sound like Pyromania.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know. So
really.
So go see Tony at
So anyways. Tom toured his vintage guitars way longer than any human being should when they were worth so much money. I couldn't believe nobody could believe he was bringing them on the road.
But if you want the tone, you gotta bring
to a point, you know. But most people, you know. But I mean, you know, he's out there taking a '59 burst out still, and a '51 Fender Nocaster, stuff like that. Man. It's like. So he comes in actually.
Does he know that I have a bunch of Talon Hartfields over here that he can borrow?
I've actually already taken photos and passed them on. You may get a call.
Okay, yeah. Look real good on him. Yeah.
Absolutely. So he, anyways, he came in to buy a Fender, like a Nocaster relic, you know, just so you'd have that same vibe and feel on the road, but not be taking the real boys out. And he was sent to me by Fred. So I got to know him through that. And nice guy, soft-spoken, really cool. And Fred comes back in the store, found out my band was playing at the time. And it was we were playing at 12th and Porter. And he came out and watched us and loved it. And went back raving to Tom, you know. And all the other guys. Eric had seen us before. And, you know, Eric's I mean, they toured a lot. They ran a lot of good bands. But Fred just really, really took to it and really liked it. And, you know, so Tom, I think he'd always just he'd had that in the back of his head, and we'd done more and more business. And he would come into the vintage room, and I'd always be playing my own tunes. So he'd walk in, playing like Old Stones or Humble Pie or just some, something. And he'd always be like, oh, that's my favorite Humble Pie record, or I love that UFO song, or, stuff like that. And, well, there was this other cat that I had done some work for named James Michael. And James sings for, 6 a.m.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Sings for 6 a.m. And he's produced like all the Motley stuff from like Saints of Los Angeles on, I think. Really talented songwriter. He had moved to Nashville for a few years from L.A. and was, doing co-writes and doing stuff with like Kelly Clarkson and, Taylor Momsen, I think, was with him when I met him. And, we got to be buds. Like me and my wife would hang out with him and his girl and just, have a blast and, And so he would have me come in and track some stuff from time to time. He'd come and watch my band with this guy named Blair Daly. Blair's a songwriter in Nashville. This is, just the circle of life.
There you go.
It's like the biggest small town in the world.
Yeah.
So Blair's a big songwriter. He's co-written a bunch of like country hits and, pop hits and stuff like that. And they came and watched us and they were fans. I even tracked a couple songs. Like the very last 2 songs Caprice ever tracked that didn't get released, we did with James. And then... turns out, Tom comes in to see me about, I forget what he was even getting. He was talking about his solo record then. He's like, yeah, I'm going to have to put a band together and blah, blah, blah. And I kind of off the cuff in passing said, well, if you ever need anybody to help you out with that, let me know.
Yeah.
I
mean, trying to insinuate myself
would have lobbed that line out there.
Sure,
I don't think we were I wasn't necessarily expecting to get a response out of that. So.
But yet it resonated.
Well, evidently, from what I understand, he left. And he calls up the godfather of his kid, Blair Daly, the guy that knew that had come and seen us play with James. I didn't know that Blair was his kid's godfather. I didn't know they knew each other.
Wow.
And he goes, hey, Blair, so you remember when I asked you if you knew anybody a while back, and you said you felt like maybe you knew somebody, but it wasn't resonating? So what about this Tony Higbee guy? And evidently Blair was like, perfect, that's the guy. I can't believe I didn't think about him. So really that whole gig came about because of Fred and Blair.
Nice.
And it was, he came in, so I get a call about a week later, because this is where it gets really funny. Hey, Tony, so I'm looking at, I need to get a couple things. I don't know if I want to take these old Marshalls out anymore, man. I've been still using the same heads he was using on the Night Songs tour. They're like late 60s Marshalls.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know if I want to take these things out anymore. They're real fragile. I have to take multiple ones out to keep them breaking down. He's coming in, see if you could help me find something that's going to kind of fit the bill. All right. So he shows up when he says he's going to. I plug him into a couple amps, crank him up to blistering volume, just deafening. He's playing. He's like, oh, yeah, he's
We're talking like Marshall reissues or like Friedman amps?
Well, no. Actually, it was like, I think there was a Germino in there, which was a total Plexi clone, and they're killer.
Yeah.
And then there was, a third power at the time, and a couple other things. There's a few different heads.
Rockaforte.
So, yeah. So we're in there, we're playing some stuff. He's like, oh, man. He goes, cool. He goes, here, man. He goes, play this real quick. Let me stand back and listen to it where I can get away from the cabinet. I didn't realize he was auditioning me. And so I'm like sitting there like playing UFO riffs and stuff like that. And, and just playing. He's like, man, that sounds great. Killer. He goes, cool. He goes, come here. I want to look at an acoustic too. All right. So we go into the acoustic room and I'm sitting there playing acoustic guitars with him. And then he just kind of reaches over and just pulls the door shut behind me. And he's like, so when you said something to me the other day about the band thing? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, could you really do that? Would they let you leave here? And I'm like, actually what he said, this was funny. He goes, so can you leave here? And I go, well, I clock out and go home every day.
No, I live here.
No, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I've got a cot in the back, Right. So you can clock out anytime you like, but you can never leave. It's like Hotel California or something, So
it's more like a roach.
So anyways, So anyways, I'm like, yeah, and that was kind of how the whole thing started. And Tom had actually come out and watched before that even happened, but after he had talked to me, he came out and watched the East Side Gamblers play one night and just kind of stood in the back of the room, just kind of checking the whole thing out. And, and that was kind of the whole thing happened. It was right place, right time.
I think that the smoke and mirrors of what people might think, as far as, especially in the Midwest, hey, he got a gig with Tom Keifer. Oh, he's a millionaire. You know what I mean? He's made it, right?
Yeah.
So
well, millionaire in the hills. When you find out what it's like to be a rock god and a millionaire, you let me know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll tell you about it.
Cody,
I'll tell you all about it.
I thought, with good reason, when I first, here's how my mind worked. Okay, he's got this solo record. We're going to go out. We're going to do a few runs. Maybe it'll last a fiscal year. And that'll probably be it, because he'll probably go out, he'll support the solo record, and then Cinderella will get back to work. And, I thought, like I said, 2 or 3 runs. I'd heard rumors of a Letterman appearance, which wound up happening.
Yeah, I wanted to get to that, by the way. I don't want to cut you off, but I don't. Let me tell you how this comes across my desk, okay? Here I am. I'm going through that change. I'm going through bandapause, which is where you're you get hot flashes and you're like, oh God, I hope everybody else's life is cut. I hope everybody else gave up too, so I don't feel bad. But and then Shannon Choning.
Yeah, my cousin.
Yeah, he shares this video, or he says something about like Tony's gonna be on David Letterman tonight, and I'm like, what? Right? And so I tune in, I'm like, oh, and there he is with a beautiful Gibson, and he's on David. That's Tony. There's Tony. Look, there's Tony. I'm telling Terry Hodges, Tony's on fucking, David Letterman tonight and shit. And, so that's how it came across to me. I was probably sitting out in my garage having coffee, like staring out at some old lady walking a dog and
singing Bryan Adams,
relishing in my, singing Bryan Adams songs. Right. No, probably just sitting there going, all right, well, this is life now for me. And I love it. I love my kids. I wouldn't change a thing. Yeah, right. I'm just saying that, that transition was a little tough for me, especially when some people transcended and right at that moment too.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang it, man. Symbolic, I wonder, I guess in my mind, I'm like, I just want to know what that experience is like to be on David Letterman. What was when you get there, you arrive, what happens when you drive to studio, whatever, to do the Letterman show. How was that? What was that like?
That was pretty surreal. Scary.
Yeah.
And it felt like it lasted 15 seconds. We got to New York City. We had a couple days off. We were doing Letterman. We actually flew an extra background singer out there for that because Tom's wife, Savannah, is one of the background singers. At the time, we didn't have the blonde girl, Kendra. She wasn't in the band. We just had the one background singer. So we flew this other girl out named Etta Britt. Etta actually sang harmonies on that song on the record, and she's like a total Nashville, just badass, Anyways, but so we fly Etta out, and we rehearsed in the basement of the hotel. Like they had like a old room down there that looked like maybe it used to be a gym, but I'm not sure. And so we're rehearsing in the basement down there, running through the stuff acoustic and getting the harmonies locked and with Etta, make sure everything's real tight. The other caveat to this story is that song, when we play it live, is probably about, I think it's 4:15, 4:20 as far as time. We find out like 4 days before the show. By the way, guys, you got 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And we're like, we've been playing it the same way for months. If I remember right, we chopped the first half of the guitar solo, which was my half. Well, me and Tom did the trade-off, but then I got to do the outro solo. We chopped the ending. We got told by, the label at the time, so you're going to do Letterman, heads down, yes sir, no sir. All these guys, all these crew guys are union guys. It's New York City. It's intimidating. It's Letterman. It's national television. Don't be scared. I mean, there's going to be a few million people watching. That's all. And, yes, don't ask for anything you don't absolutely need. And if they really like you, maybe they'll let you run the song twice in sound check. And it's like, all right. So we get there. Our crew guys go there and they load in and they set everything up at like 7 a.m.
Wow.
All right. So they go there and they load in. We get there, I don't know, 1 or 2. They hand me my guitar. And you ever heard about how cold that studio is? He notoriously kept that studio so cold. And I somebody told me it was so that he wouldn't sweat in his suits.
Okay.
Oh.
But like I'm talking like 50s.
Finger freezing.
I walk in, so imagine walking in there and it's cold, and you're scared because it's national television for the first time, and somebody hands you your guitar and it's been sitting in there for 7 hours.
Yeah.
And it's freezing.
It's
and
freezing.
the strings are freezing.
Yeah. Right.
And you're just like, oh. So I walk in, I'm like, check. Yeah, the monitor sounds amazing. I don't need to ask for anything. The mix was incredible. Yeah. And so we're in there and we all right, go for it. And what they're doing is they're figuring out how to mix the levels and everything and where to shove up stuff if they feel like it. And they're doing, blocking the cameras for all the shots, and basically kind of a little bit of a dress rehearsal. So we're in there and we run through the song the first time, and I'm like, I get through it. It's loud and it sounds great. I didn't fuck it up too bad. And, and up to this point, up to the show, we had never got all the changes we had to make right on stage.
Oh, boy.
We'd tried to play it like we had to play it on the show, the previous 2 shows, and we never got it right. So we're in there, we're doing it, and we get done with it, and there's like, 8 or 10 people in there working. And we stop, and all of a sudden I hear, fuck yeah! Finally a fucking rock band!
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, thank God they like this. Thank God. I'm really nervous about that. You've seen, I've heard some bands sound like shit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dude, yeah. No.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of that is at the mercy of the engineers. You don't know.
Dude.
So anyways.
Saturday Night fucking Live. I mean, how many episodes of Saturday Night Live where you've watched? And it's a good band and they're a good band.
Yeah.
And they sound like hammered
mix.
shit.
Yeah.
You're like, what?
So no, I totally get it. So they're like, I was like, cool. All right. So we're like, so what else do you need? And they're like, play it again. Yes. They had us play it 4 times.
Yes.
Nice. And I'm not going to lie. I say this in the most humble sort of way. I mean, I felt like we played really well on that show. Tom sang great, but that's one of the best television mixes I have ever heard of a band. I remember just listening going, I can't believe how fucking good this sounds.
Awesome.
So, but we go out to do it. I got dressed up. Like I had a vest and a tie and, black flares on, and it's fucking Letterman, I got my orange Sparkle 335. I'm like,
I saw that. That was killer.
So I'm like, let's do this. And we go and they do makeup and they do hair. And I'm sitting there and a guy's like, doing whatever to my hair that make it look like it pretty much looks right now, though. Yeah, he was fixing it so it would still look like that on television, evidently. And he goes, dig the tie. Dave's going to like that. And I'm like, really? And he goes, yeah, he appreciates when somebody respects the sanctity of the theater. Not referring to Dave, but the fact that it's the Ed Sullivan Theater.
Yeah.
Evidently, Dave wasn't a fan of somebody just rolling off the bus looking like a schlub, like they just got out of their bunk.
Right, yeah.
You know, like they didn't give a fuck, you know. I mean, I give a fuck, and you should give a fuck. So we walk out on stage, and the thing you don't grasp on when you see that on television, how fucking small that stage is. It's small.
That's bitty, huh?
It's small to where, I'm not kidding, Brian. Here's where we're playing. And you know, you see the whole Paul Schaefer band set up?
Yeah.
Paul Schaefer was from me to that Kiss thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
At his keyboards, just big grin on his face and the sunglasses. Yeah.
For people that are listening, that can't see what he's pointing at, that's literally like 5 feet away from him.
Yeah. That's maybe. I want to
say
you
can point to anything in this room and say that Kiss thing too.
I could have reached over. I could have reached over and high-fived Paul at any point during that performance.
Awesome.
That's how close he was. But it looks way more spread out on television.
Sure.
But it's small.
The camera angles
I
make
loved
it
him on
expansive.
Spinal Tap, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh God, who didn't? Right? Artie
On Saturday Night
Fufkin.
Live.
Yeah.
So anyways, but then here's the trippy thing. You know, you and I grew up and we all did watching Letterman, you know, and they do their thing, and then the band starts playing, they go to commercial, and then they come back and the band's still playing, and Paul cuts them out, and that's it. Well, the way they film that show is they would film it in real time. So they would start filming at like 5:30 and stop filming at 6:30. It was all timed. And so what's weird is you're there and we're down in this little dressing room and we can watch the whole thing being filmed, and they've got a monitor down there and sound and everything. And we're watching, and the band would start playing, and then you would never see the commercial. The band's just jamming.
Awesome.
And then it comes back, and the band's still jamming, you know?
Yeah.
And then they stop. But it's just weird to see the whole show flow as
Yeah.
a show.
real
That's
event.
really cool,
Yeah.
man.
That is
That's
cool.
really cool.
That is really cool.
That's the kind of shit that I'm digging for right there, because I'll never experience that. And our listeners will never experience that.
Most of us
probably.
don't get to see behind the scenes. I mean, I remember one time doing a music thing, I got to see a local news broadcast with commercials and stuff like that, and I always kind of wondered what it was like when they would go to commercials. And I mean, they would completely break character, and you would see that the set looks like a lot more fake, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't look like, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously with high definition nowadays, the set's got to look good, but
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
to get a look behind the scenes is really just kind of a dream.
Did you get a
know,
chance
it's a
to
fantasy.
talk to Letterman then?
You know what? It was just a real brief hi. He came over and shook my hand and Tom's hand at the end of the performance. And, you know, the thing he did, and we got a phone call the next day from his management, actually talking about how much Dave really liked the band. And evidently Dave has a couple things, and I didn't really know this, but some people told me later. If he really likes your band, like really likes you, he always had this catchphrase, ladies and gentlemen, hold the phones. I think we have a winner. And he said that at the end of our performance.
Cool.
And and evidently, like, he really dug it. And he almost seemed like, I don't know if he pleasantly surprised maybe, but just like, yeah, cool, great, you know.
But he doesn't know what band's going to be on his show. He didn't know.
He knows. I'm sure he knows. He has to have some idea. Honestly, Tom's label that got released on was a label called Morovy Records, and Morovy is actually owned by his corporation, Worldwide Pants.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, I can't guarantee that he'd heard us before or not. Probably.
Have you? Do you know if possibly Tom Keifer was nervous for that show? I mean, I know he's played a lot of big shows, but did he? Because he was going on a solo record, so people were expecting "Shake Me" probably or something, and so he's playing on Letterman. He's playing something that people might not have heard yet. Was he nervous?
Oh yeah, no, he was nervous, but I mean, he was just nervous because it was Letterman. I mean, he respects the sanctity of that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he was nervous. He hadn't, it's his solo band, and I mean, that's a tough hurdle to overcome for him. I mean, here's a guy that's been associated with this band for, 3 decades. And even though he is the front man and he's the primary songwriter for the most part, I mean, there's some co-writes in there too, but
you have any?
Oh no, that solo record was done long.
Oh, okay. For some reason, it came down the wire to me that you had some co-writes on that.
Yeah, none.
Yeah,
that record. Him and his wife had been working on that album. I want to say for close to a decade, just off and on. They were literally. He has a studio in his house, and they were literally writing and recording stuff here and there. And then after so many years, they're like, we've got a record here, and that was kind of
what's Tom like as a boss?
Great. I couldn't ask for
I know you're not going to say it was a jack off, man.
I hate that.
But is it sometimes when you get a utility player or whatever it is that you had mentioned, the star doesn't really talk to the band much. They travel separate. It's not that situation with you guys, is it?
No. He is... It is absolutely, and I've heard all the nightmare stories. It's absolutely, and I'm not just saying this. It's the best possible situation that anybody in my position could ever hope to fall into. He is super nice. He's super generous. I could literally call that guy at 3:30 in the morning with a flat tire 40 miles away, and he'd get out of bed and come help me. Like, he's that guy.
Awesome.
We all travel on one bus. It's full. I'm talking band, crew. Sometimes Tom and his wife actually bring their kid. They've got a 12-year-old son named Jaden.
Cool.
And at that point, that those buses have 12 bunks, and that's between the band and the crew and Jaden, all 12 bunks are full.
Wow.
So you better like each other when you're going to Full Throttle Saloon, and it's a 26-hour drive each way. So, he's...
So you played at Full Throttle before it burnt down?
2 years in a row.
Wow. Excellent.
But he's generous. I've never had to ask that guy for anything. He's just, I never have to worry about it. He's the kind of guy that when we get home and we've been off the road for, a few weeks, there'll be a text message go out to the whole band. Hey, everybody, band meeting, Jay Alexander's Monday night. And he'll take the whole band out and buy us all dinner.
Ass kicking.
Take us to Roost Chris Steakhouse for Christmas. And buy everybody a steak dinner.
I love the
steak. Have you been to his house?
I love the steak.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, multiple times.
What's his house like? I know this is way out. It's out of taste, but I got to do it because I want to know.
No, you know what? It's a modest house.
If he's smart, it would be. Jesus Christ, we know what happened to MC Hammer, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
No, don't worry, man. Don't worry. There were no hammer pants involved in the building.
Right.
It's just a nice house in Nashville.
He seems like a smart guy. A lot of guys lose their mind and all that stuff, and he seems like a really down to earth guy. And you know what, Tony, I just got to say when I can, I don't think that could have happened to a better guy than you. And I really think that you're one of them guys that I don't know if it has or not. As soon as you got here, I remembered this is Tony. I'm gonna be honest. We wanted to make sure that the house looked nice for you. My wife was really nervous about you coming because she don't know you. She didn't know you then. She thinks that you're a rock star coming to our house and that you're gonna be like, oh God, look at this drab
squalor.
And I'm like, honey, it's Tony. He's never been too good for anybody.
I've got a ranch style home that was built in '64 that needed a kitchen remodel 15 years ago. It still hasn't gotten it. It's trust me, man.
But you can still throw down some tacos in that kitchen.
Dude, you have no idea. You have no idea what
my wife we have a little kitchen, and my wife can throw down. And I'm proud of her because when I do decide to get a bigger house, which I don't now because I'm a single, I make all the money right now so she can stay home with the kids. And once they're in school and we get more income, the next house I get, she deserves a big ass kitchen.
Hell yeah,
you know what I mean? And I hope to do that for her someday.
Hell
yeah. But I've always respected your character that way. You've always been like a good guy, and I know that you'll always remember where you come from, and I don't think that ever goes to your head. For example, when Dive Bomb, my '80s cover band, was playing at the rally on the river, and Tom Keifer was the headliner. He was on the big stage, and we played in a tent next to it, and we had to play before and then after. Tom Keifer. Okay. So we had to play like a 20-minute set before so people can drink beer and then get over to see you. And I went over and I watched and I was like, there's Tony, man, just killing it. I was so humbled. I could put in my place in a way, but I realized what I was... You got to understand why I'm saying that. The reason I'm saying that is because your positioning in life was what you're supposed to do if you want to get there. You can't sit in Davenport and go, I'm going to get big someday, and here's what I'm going to do. Well, I got to go to work first, but then I'm going to get big. And it takes somebody like you that goes, when you started talking about your story about when you moved to Atlanta and did all that stuff, that's where most people, but I can't do that. I can't do that. You have to sacrifice. You have to compromise. And you did, and you landed, in a good position. And like I said, it couldn't have happened to a better person. And I'll always remember, and I really hoped when that gig came that you would come over and say hi, or I'd be able to say hi to you. And you did. And I saw you standing in the audience, and I was like, oh, my God, Tony gets to see me sing, and I'm really trying. And my voice felt good that night, too. And I was like,
sang great.
I got to hope the sound man's not fucking it up out there because it sounds good up here.
You sang great. You had me get up on stage and play.
And that was
a train wreck.
I had a nightmare, but that was a nightmare because, first of all, I should have played guitar, and you should have played guitar, or I should have sang while you played guitar, and I shouldn't have played drum. I didn't know what to do.
It was hilarious. I walked off stage. I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I was completely exhausted. We'd done several shows in a row. I think I'd been out golfing with my uncle that day, which is what I did today too, actually.
Yeah.
And I was just beat, and I had a couple beers in me, and you handed me a guitar, and it's up here, and it's got a whammy bar, and I'm like, what the fuck do I do? Then we're playing AC/DC. I think I actually played the guitar solo from one AC/DC song in a different AC/DC
Perfect.
song. I literally think I played the wrong, but it worked because it's AC/DC.
Yeah, exactly. You can play the drum beat from the wrong AC/DC
To do it
song.
again, we should have played a Kiss song.
We should, absolutely.
Because that's what really brought us together in the beginning anyway, was Kiss, right? So
exactly.
I blew that. And I was, but to see you out there, and I knew, I was like, that's Tony. He always comes through that way. He's not going to be like, and it was beautiful for me to get to see you, and I was employing my craft, and I just got done watching you do your new thing that you do now.
Yeah. Well, and for me, I was kind of, I saw you briefly. I had family there. My dad was there. I had family. I had friends that were, from back in Monmouth and stuff. They're up there. And I think I only saw you before that once in passing, and you were kind of off in the distance, and you were talking to somebody, and I looked over and I went, I think that's Brian. And I was kind of, and I was talking to my dad, and I turned around and looked again, and you were gone. And so we got done playing, and I walked off and was saying hi to friends that I hadn't seen in years and all that, and kind of doing the thing. And I knew the bus was getting ready to leave pretty soon, and we had a haul to whatever the next thing was. We had to get going, and I was just like, I was a little nervous about it, and I was just like, oh, fuck it, man. I'm going to go over there and see Brian. So I just kind of walked over, and I just kind of slipped into the tent. I did. I just wanted to see. I wanted to see how you were doing. And I'm in there for not even 2 minutes. And this real pretty girl comes walking up to me, and she taps me on the shoulder, and she looks up at me, and she goes, Tony? And I'm like, yeah? And she goes, hi, I'm Brian's wife, Danelle. And I'm like, good job, Brian.
Rock and roll has been good to me, man.
Hey, man. Let's make no bones about this. If we were in it for the money, we would have quit years ago.
Yeah.
But girls are a large portion of the reason we were into it. And my wife is way better looking than me. I'm fully aware of this.
I won't tell her that you're really a dork as long as you don't tell mine I'm really a dork.
Hey, it's totally cool. It's totally cool. You also batted up, and you got the beautiful kids and the family. I mean, you got the golden ring. That's as good as it gets.
I'm winning, I think.
You're absolutely winning at life, Yeah. And so I saw her for a minute, and then, I saw you, and, we kind of made eye contact. You kind of had this fucking A, look.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I'm probably singing Unskinny Pop or something, or something
no.
stupid.
I don't remember what it was, but I know it wasn't Unskinny Pop. So we're talking. We saw each other briefly, and I wanted to hang out and talk for a little while, and then literally I'm walking off stage. I'm handing the guitar, my phone's ringing, and it's the tour manager.
Yeah.
We gotta go. Bus is running. We're leaving. I'm like, shit. I'm like, I gotta go. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
So we really didn't get to hang out.
But that was really cool for you to come over, and that was cool of you. It was
well, dude. I wanted to, and I was a little nervous about it. But
you guys are friends.
Yeah, I didn't see you getting me up on stage on Tom Keifer's stage though.
Yeah. I don't get.
I'm joking.
I don't get anybody up on Tom Keifer's stage. That's Tom's stage.
Yeah.
It's not my name on the marquee.
Right.
So I just get on the bus and go play guitar, and It's all good.
So where's it all at right now? I mean, are you on tour? Are you on a break? I mean, what kind of dates do you do? Do you leave for weeks, or do you do like a couple days here and then?
And it's all over the place. Like, this year has been a lot of stop and go, and not in a bad way. It's like, we'll go out. Last weekend, we went. We did 3 shows in a row. We left on a Wednesday. We played Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Came home after the show on Saturday. Got home on Sunday. Was home for a couple days, and then a lot of times we'll pick up and take off right again and go do the same thing. Do a show here, a couple shows there. July actually is the lightest month though for me. It's turned out great. This year I was able to come home and see family and come see you. Yeah, We've got one show this month. We're playing some festival up in Canada, and we're direct support for the Cult.
Nice.
So I'm like, excellent, man.
Do you still work then too?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm juggling 3 bands and a job.
Because didn't you join?
I'm playing for Damon Johnson.
Yeah, you're in his band as well.
Yeah. When we get time,
Okay,
Damon just put out a new solo EP called Echo. I mean, it's under, that's the title of it. It's under Damon Johnson. I think that's also on iTunes. It's really good.
Well, Tony, I got to be honest with you. I mean, the way things are going for you, I think you're going to look really silly in Paul Stanley makeup. I mean, if they decide to quit and get new dudes, I think
I've been working on my I've been working on my people. I think I can.
He's trying to upstage my Paul Stanley shit. I thought I had it down, but that was really
good. I've got. That reminds me. I'm glad you said something because I heard his autobiography. There's an audiobook version with him reading it.
It's horrible. You don't want to do it because
I want to listen to it on the car ride on the way home.
I was thinking Gene's a dick, so I went ahead and bought my own guitar. He says it with really weird inflections and things. I like to read it and try to imagine how he's saying it.
My goal in life is I actually want my GPS to have Paul Stanley's voice.
Oh, that would be awesome. Take a ride.
Can you imagine?
That would be so good.
You're in Chicago.
Dude, we should patent that.
You guys got it.
You could probably call Paul, right? I mean,
well, it's
you probably
hilarious.
call him up.
We are all over the place. This is the most scattered interview ever. I apologize. What the fuck are we even talking about?
Who knows?
Well, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't fucking matter.
Real quick though, I mean, Ted Renner is a friend of mine and friend of yours, and you had said that you heard
friend of mine now too. I love Ted.
Yeah, you heard of MDR through Ted.
A couple years ago, me and Marielle were back visiting, and we were over at Ted's place, and he's actually not even a couple years, maybe a year and a half ago. And we're hanging out in his newly remodeled man cave basement thing. He's got like this bar, and, couch and a 79-inch TV on the wall, and just all this stuff. And you came up, and Ted's a tough egg to crack. He either likes it or he doesn't. And obviously you'd played in a band with Ted, and Ted and I have been tight for years. And, there was probably, because there was some friction between you and me, there may have even at one point been a little bit of friction between you and Ted. And you came up, and Ted's like, Brian really, he's really become a really good dude. He's a great guy. He's, salt of the earth. He does this radio podcast, he's probably does more for the local music scene than anybody else, and just gushing with nothing but compliments about you. And then actually pulled up one of your guys' podcast, and he's like, here, you got to watch this part. He actually talks about you for a minute. And then he showed, it was like the one, and he's like showing, I remember it because he's showing the footage of us playing at the Pace. And you're up there shredding, and you're like laughing, go, look at how you play guitar.
He's a rock.
And I remember just cracking up. You're like, look how fast my fingers are moving.
Yeah, no doubt.
I was
no way that's going to happen now.
And that was when I was in his head. I was like, you mean he doesn't play guitar anymore?
Yeah.
The fuck's going on?
Thank you very much, Ted. For
right.
So, no, but he pulled it up, and and you talk briefly, and I'm like standing up on that ridiculous podium at the Pace, and I'm like, hair's probably spinning around.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and so we started kind of talking about that, and we were having a good hang and all that, and that it's like all the forces kind of came together to make that this whole thing happen, and
Yeah, well, he told me, he said, Tony was in town, and I showed him some of your stuff, and I was like, Oh no, man! I was like, what? I'm like, well, that's cool. I don't really care. You know what did he say?
Right, exactly.
Did he say something like maybe that's cool or?
Did he say, please don't remind me about what lesser beings do?
Yeah. But no, I have a ton of fun doing this, and whatever powers that came to be to get you on the show. I mean, people were like, it's about time. You know, I gotta be honest. This was more therapy for me than a podcast. And thank you very much for coming and doing it, man, because there's a lot of stuff I need to get off my chest, and it's great to see you. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
You know,
the feeling's very mutual.
Yeah, I'm really happy for you, and you know,
keep on rocking.
Keep on rocking, man.
Keep on fucking rocking, man.
Stay healthy and keep on doing it, man. And every once in a while, I'd like, you know, maybe a check in on the road and get a couple stories from you here and there that I can tell.
Hey, you know, there's usually some calamity going on. I've had there's every day. I never realized how real Spinal Tap was. Every day there's the dude getting stuck in the cocoon.
Yeah.
That's my wife's favorite part too, by the way.
There's always something. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, we're playing the M3 Festival last year. We're headlining. That was one of those shows. I don't say this very often because I am hard on myself. That was one of those shows I couldn't miss a note. I was like, I was in the groove and the adrenaline was going and everything was going great and the band sounded fucking killer. And I, go walking across I would go walking up the front of the stage and I hit the toggle switch and go to play the big guitar solo on Coming Home. And my amp just,
son of a bitch.
Nothing, just dead. Yeah. And so we're scrambling. And, when your guitar tech is off the side of the stage and behind your amp line, and it's just all he's hearing is a bunch of noise, he doesn't know my amp's not working.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, and I'm looking at the pedal board, there's nothing disconnected. Mm-hmm. I think what had happened was somebody somewhere, possibly in Europe's camp, or I don't know, but somewhere a wireless got switched on. And their frequency stepped on my frequency and just nixed it.
Yeah.
So the joys of technology. And so that whole solo goes out. I have nothing, and then literally I'm scrambling around and I get a cable and just plug it straight into the head.
Boom.
20-foot cable on this giant stage, and I hit the harmony solo with Tom, the outro solo, and then get through the rest of the set. But I'm just and I find out later, that was getting broadcast on XM. It's that's awesome, guys. Thanks, I mean, there's just
feeling cool.
There's always,
that's so cool.
And you'll never, unless you're just a raging idiot, you'll never ever get your head too far in the clouds because there'll always be something like that will bring you back to reality with a swiftness.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
But yeah, man, I'm really glad you had me on the show.
Yeah, man. I like I said, this is probably one of my favorite podcasts because I think a lot got done for me in this. I know that it seems like I'm being it's affected my entire life.
No, but it's okay to be selfish, Brian.
But really,
it's okay.
But there really always has been this lingering thing with me about my past and how I was as a human being. That it's not like I can fix everything, but I just want everybody to know now that we're grown up and we're men now. Yeah. I'm glad that you're man enough to understand that and to look past that.
You can't. Life is. I've been faced with my mortality way earlier than I ever should have been, and on top of that, I got raised right, and I feel like life is way too precious to sit and harbor resentment.
Sure.
Especially like we said earlier on, when people change as much as they change over an extended period of time. It's you just got to let that shit go. I mean, that was a big part of me moving to Atlanta.
Yeah,
I was starting fresh, wiping a slate clean, getting over a lot of insecurities that I could have just as easily carried with me down there.
Yeah,
and just kind of being being myself completely for the first time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, where you don't have to be stuck in the dynamics.
Well, yeah, because there's no expectations.
Yeah,
and,
and you don't have these relationships.
I was getting over a rough relationship at that time too. I just had my heart broken pretty bad, and I was kind of
That's when you write a record.
Dude, right?
But I want you to know, Tony, I'm not saying this because I would say this if you were working at McDonald's now with 6 kids from 5 different women.
Yeah.
If you weren't playing with Keifer, I would be saying the same things to you. It's not because you're doing well now and I want to, get in on that somehow. I'm telling you, man to man, friend to friend,
I don't
from a long time ago that, I loved you then and I love you now. And you'll always be a part of who I am as a musician.
Oh,
regardless, and you've always been a peer to me, and I'm glad that you're part of my life.
Well, thanks,
and
man.
thank you for being here.
I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. But we got to end this bitch.
No, that's a great ending. I don't know why you're even saying we got to end it. That was a beautiful closing, and now you're fucking it up.
Oh, sorry. Well, leave it to me. I fuck everything up, right?
Yeah.
So
It's not Walter fucking
Cronkite. So anyway, episode 59, man. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks, Tony, for being here, and we'll see you hopefully for episode 60, unless I curl up into a ball and cry myself to sleep for a month or something.
And thank you, Brian.
No. Thank you, Travis.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon, man.
Appreciate it.
Oh, shit. I said